Who is this show? I don't know this. I've never heard of this show. Is this like a right-wing show or something? Or
yeah, they're like a MMA affiliated podcast called like the NELK Bros. And
I wouldn't MMA affiliated podcast. There's no way that's going to go anywhere. There's no examples of that type of success.
It's the Full Send podcast.
I mean, had we started off as a wrestling podcast and then branched into politics, or let's say medicine, public health policy, we would have, 5 times the audience, 10 times the audience, 100 times the audience? Should have back in the day, I made a fateful error when I didn't let Matt Binder make this into a wrestling podcast. And then we could have just rolled in the politics. But these guys got it right. And they have the former president on. And it's not Barack Obama, not that one. Here is Donald Trump on with the hosts of Full Send. I don't even know the name of the host, but it really doesn't matter. Here he is.
Because you were stern with Putin. Is that why?
Well, not because of my relationship, but really because of the fact I told him he can't do it.
So can you pick up the phone call right now, make a call to Putin and say, you're not a president anymore, but as an American citizen, can you pick up the phone and
I just want to I just want to be clear on what's going on here. The guy from the MMA podcast is saying, can you just pick up the phone and call Putin and go, hey, dude, back off? Because, despite the fact that I'm not president, I'm just a tough guy. That's why Putin didn't invade under Trump, was because Trump was a tough guy. Now, it could have also been that Putin may have been under the impression that Trump was going to in the future maybe win an election again and provide everything that Putin wanted in terms of control over Ukraine without having to go to war, which has been obviously very costly for the Russians. Not in any way, obviously, to diminish the fact that they've also killed now thousands of civilians, it appears. If not thousands, certainly well into the hundreds. But here is the MMA guy going, like, can't you just call him up and say, like, dude, back off, or we'll drive over there and.
What result is going on?
First of all, you really have to be in a position where you are president, and you do that. And this would have never happened. 100% would have never happened. And we spoke about it because I knew that he had a love for it. Hey, look, they took over Crimea under Obama and Biden, but they took over Crimea like Grant took Richmond. Okay, they took it over. It was very quick. And they took it over a major, very powerful section, probably in many ways the most powerful section. They have their submarine bases, and they took it over. And that was it. Nobody did anything about it. Under Bush, they took over Georgia. And I don't mean Georgia that we all know and love. I mean the other Georgia. And they took that over, and they took it over very easily without any repercussions, very, very easily. And now they're taking over the whole ball of wax under Biden. And it's really a disgraceful situation. It would have never happened. And we did talk about it. I mean, he definitely wanted Ukraine, loved Ukraine, would never have happened.
What do you see happening next then? Because it seems like the tension.
I love the idea of like he loves Ukraine so much, he has to flatten it. That saying, if you love something, then continually pound it with artillery and some air power until it's flattened and its people are dead. And then if it goes away, then it was never yours to begin with.
Tensions are high. How does this all end? Is this going to be like a long-term thing? How do you see it unfolding?
Well, and I said this a long time ago, if this happens, we are playing right into their hands, green energy. The windmills, they don't work. They're too expensive. They kill all the birds. They ruin your landscapes. And yet the environmentalists love the windmills. And I've been preaching this for years. The windmills, and I had them way down, but the windmills are the most expensive energy you can have. and they don't work. And by the way, they last a period of 10 years. And by the time they
I mean, you can let them just keep going just a little bit more. I mean, just because what happens after they rust and they don't work?
start rusting and rotting all over the place, nobody ever takes them down. They just go onto the next piece of prairie or land and destroy that. It's incredible that they want, but other forms of green energy, they don't have the power to power our factories. They're extremely expensive. And I preached loud and clear.
All right. First off, the difference between getting rid of a windmill and, you know, the massive chasm that you've opened up into the earth to drill, I think it's probably easier to get rid of the windmill, assuming that they're only built to last 10 years, which I'm not quite clear on. But aside from that, there has obviously been some type of clarion call that has been sent out on the right that when you talk about this, be careful, because the obvious and really the only way in which the United States can achieve so-called energy independence is to be decoupled from the international market for oil. Now, Americans don't care about being energy independent. They just want the prices to be lower. We have no ability to drill our way out of this. Our refineries don't even essentially refine, for the most part, the type of oil that we pull out of our ground. So we don't have the ability to do that independently, unless we were to A, nationalize every single bit of fossil fuel that we pull out of the ground and keep that within our own bubble, which of course none of these people ever have any interest in, because this is the only reason why they're doing it is for the profits in the first place. But the obvious answer, the most obvious answer, is if we had no gasoline powered cars, or very few gasoline powered cars, and they were all electric. And how would you get that? Well, maybe you'd build 50,000 or 100,000 charging stations across the country. Maybe you would have government subsidies of battery technology. You would provide tax incentives for cars. You would subsidize the development of less expensive electric cars. There's a whole host of things we could do, and they're quite obvious. And that's why every answer from a Republican about what can we do about this has to be some version of windmills are bad. It's Greta Thunberg's fault, or it's the windmills' fault. Or the solar thing, the way that it burns the birds, not good. That's the only, and he doesn't have the ability to integrate it into an actual conversation. He just knows, like, oh, how could avoid windmills bad? That's it. The other ones at least have the sophistication of sort of like taking a half step. Greta Thunberg's fault and, windmills. But this is, and of course, there's not been enough because the Democrats couldn't figure out how to get Joe Manchin on board. Whatever reason, you don't see Democrats out there, or anybody else for that matter, coming out and saying the obvious thing. Between Saudi Arabia and Russia and every other involvement that we have in the Middle East, there's one way for us to decouple from that. We just can't seem to do it. Aside from the fact that, there's this sort of global warming thing happening.